Every word of the New Testament was written in Greek, not Hebrew, not Aramaic, Greek. Jesus was Jewish. His disciples were Jewish. Christianity emerged from Judaism. So why Greek? The answer died in Babylon in 323 BCE, a 32-year-old king with a fever and a dream of one world. At its height, Alexander's empire stretched from Greece to the edge of India. He conquered more territory in 12 years than any human before him. And when he died in Babylon, right here, he left behind something more powerful than an army. He left a cultural blueprint that would shape the language of Christianity 300 years later. To understand how Greek became the language of the New Testament, we need to understand one man's extraordinary life. And that life moved fast. Alexander was born in 356 BCE. At 13, Aristotle became his tutor, the greatest philosopher of the ancient world, teaching the future conqueror. At 20, his father, Philip II, was assassinated and Alexander became king. At 22, he defeated the Persian Empire at the Battle of Granicus. He pushed his army to the Indus River in India before they forced him to turn back. At 32, he was dead, 12 years. That's all it took to reshape the ancient world. The speed itself tells us something important. Previous empires, Assyrian, Egyptian, Babylonian, wanted tribute, taxes, food, money. They didn't care what language you spoke at home or what gods you worshipped. Pay up and they left you alone. Alexander wanted something different. He wanted cultural transformation. He didn't just conquer territories, he transformed them. This is Hellenization. The word literally means making Greek, and it was unprecedented. No empire before Alexander had attempted to unify conquered peoples under a single cultural framework. Tribute empires extracted wealth. Alexander's empire exported identity. That distinction matters for everything that follows. Hellenization was strategic, not total. Alexander understood you can't force an entire population to change overnight. So he created a two-tier system. Elites, government officials, merchants, anyone who wanted power or influence had to speak Greek and adopt Greek culture. Common people could keep their local languages and customs. The engine of this transformation, Greek-style cities. Alexander founded cities throughout his empire and settled army veterans there. These veterans built communities modeled on Greek cities back home, with gymnasiums, theaters, marketplaces. Each city became a cultural outpost, radiating Greek influence into surrounding regions. But Alexander died young, and his empire didn't survive him. What happened next shaped the Jewish world for centuries. Alexander left no clear successor. His generals, called the Diadochi, Greek for successors, divided the empire among themselves. 4 kingdoms emerged: Greece, a northern territory, and 2 that matter most for our story, the Syrian-Greek Empire and the Egyptian-Greek Empire. Look at where Israel sits on this map. Directly between these 2 Greek kingdoms, for the next 3 centuries, the Jewish people lived under Greek rule, caught between competing Hellenistic powers. This geography shaped everything. Judaism in Jesus' time was not the Judaism of the Hebrew Bible. It was a Greco-Roman religion shaped by 300 years of Hellenistic influence. The tensions in the Gospels, the ideas in Paul's letters, the very language of the New Testament all emerged from this collision of Jewish and Greek worlds. Some Jews embraced Hellenization, others violently resisted. That tension runs through the entire New Testament period. When you read about Pharisees, Sadducees, or conflicts over the law, you're reading about responses to Greek influence. The most lasting legacy of Hellenization was language. Not classical Greek, the Greek of Plato and Aristotle, Koine Greek. Koine means common or shared. It was a simplified, widespread form that became the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean. Merchants used it, governments administered in it, and writers wrote in it. Around 250 BCE, Jewish scholars in Alexandria translated the Hebrew scriptures into Koine Greek, the Septuagint. 3 centuries later, every book of the New Testament was written in Koine Greek. The New Testament was written to be understood across the Hellenized world, right? So 300 years separate Alexander's death from Jesus' ministry, 300 years of Hellenization. When you read the New Testament, you're reading documents written in the language of empire, a language that had been reshaping Jewish culture for generations. Notice how the New Testament uses Greek to mean Gentile or non-Jewish. It's a cultural category, not just an ethnic one. Greek meant Hellenized, someone who had adopted the common culture. This distinction between Jew and Greek runs through Paul's letters because it was the fundamental cultural divide of his world. When reading the New Testament, recognize you're reading documents shaped by this history. The Greek language wasn't neutral. It carried 3 centuries of cultural tension. Jewish communities had to navigate whether to embrace or resist Hellenization. Some built gymnasiums and adopted Greek names. Others died rather than abandon their traditions. That story, the Maccabean Revolt, explains why the Jewish world of Jesus was so divided. Some groups collaborated with Greek culture, others defined themselves by resistance. That conflict didn't end, it intensified. Alexander died at 32 with a fever in Babylon. He never saw what his conquest would become. He never knew that the language he spread would carry the story of a Jewish teacher executed by Rome. He never imagined that Koine Greek, the common tongue of merchants and soldiers, would preserve the Gospels and Paul's letters for 2,000 years. The New Testament exists in Greek because of choices made 3 centuries before Jesus was born. Understanding that history changes how we read these texts, not as documents dropped from heaven, but as products of a Hellenized Jewish world.